Shooting your first YouTube video is not easy. It can feel very daunting and you can feel like you're a little bit on your own. Today, I'd like to give you a few little tips and tricks to simplify that process of making your first YouTube video. But I'd like to narrow down this all to just a few key factors. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. Okay, so you've got yourself in front of the camera. You've hit record and you've started to relay some information. You started to create. You began this wonderful process of making your first YouTube video. What do you say? How do you plan what you're going to say? How do you kind of prepare? You know, because I think it's quite natural for us all to turn up to our first YouTube video and want to have something prepared. Now, something that I do is and I've tried a few different variants. What I like to do is I like to write bullet points on a list, like this, which of course brings me onto another form of relaying your message that sometimes some people can prefer, is to actually script it out entirely. And some people are better at doing this. I prefer reading from bullet points. I've tried doing both. And I encourage anyone that's starting on a YouTube venture, that is making their first piece of content and pieces of content to come, is to practice using bullet points and then practice writing a script. The problem for me with writing a script, I mean, and anyone, it's quite time consuming. And if you're going to write out a script and make sure that everything's there, then I don't know. And for me, it doesn't feel as authentic. It feels like I don't know, there's something that doesn't connect. I prefer working around bullet points. So I'll have the title of the video in mind and I'll write a few separate bullet points and abbreviate around them and try to expand, pull apart and discuss them in little bits and pieces. Or you could just quite simply, if you want to, just pull out a camera and make a video. A lot of vloggers do that. They have no script or any kind of bullet points whatsoever. I've only ever made one video where I remember I was driving along in my car and I had a thought come over me and I pulled over and I got out and I got my camera out and I spoke what was on my mind. It's the only video I've done that was completely in the moment that came to me. I'm going to pin that video right here if you want to go and have a look at it. It's the only video that I've done that was 100% authentic and straight in the moment. One of the most overwhelming parts of creating your first video is just the idea of sticking a camera in your face and saying what's on your mind. It can feel quite hard. And it is hard. It's hard for me now. I've made a handful of videos, but overcoming these nerves is something that you will get in time. The best piece of advice I can give you for when it comes to recording your first video, when you first hit record and you feel like all the spotlight's on you, try to talk to the camera like it's a friend that's looking for some advice. So you're in perhaps some sense taking the whole Hollywood feeling out of it all and thinking that there are so many people behind a lens. And you're imagining like a scenario where you just sat down with a friend and you're just having a beer or you're having something to eat. And in your own mind, you kind of create this casual setting. It makes it a lot easier. I mean, of course, sure, don't end up falling into the pit of just rabbling on about anything or, you know, going off on a tangent or down a rabbit hole, because we can all do that with our friends sometimes. But remember to just use it as a tool sometimes to help ease those nerves and just calm yourself down and perhaps relay your message a lot more easily. Most of my videos that I shoot is out here walking in the forest like I am with you today. I mean, I've done others. I've done them where I've been sat down. I've tried static shots, me sitting down at a table, that kind of a thing. And I mean, with all of this YouTube creation in the beginning, you have to just try as many different variants of the recording process as you can. I mean, you know, I had to find out that walking like this and talking like this, you know, while I'm making a video is the best one for me. And I only did that by just trying every single different option available. And like I said before, with the scripting and the bullet pointing, there's no one right or wrong way really to do any of this. There's a few different ways to do that, but you have to try every single different one to really dial in, you know, what works for you, because, you know, what might not work for you might not work for somebody else. You know, we're all different, but the only way you're going to find that out is if you do them all. And I think a lot of people that create their own content on YouTube will agree, and I certainly do feel this way as well, that the idea of like people seeing you out in public when you're walking along talking to a camera, you kind of feel a bit shy about it. You kind of feel a bit almost embarrassed. I think embarrassed is the right word. I can't think of a better way to sort of put it, but you know, and that's why I like coming out here, because, you know, there's, as you can see, there's no one around. So, you know, I can I can kind of do it in peace. If I was to see someone coming, I'd feel a little bit silly, but perhaps some people don't feel the same way. But if you're going to shoot your first video, unless you are completely confident, just pulling a camera out and doing it wherever you want, I'd advise, you know, going somewhere private, like, I don't know, in your back garden, or even outside like this, you know. Take that pressure away from you of worrying about other people's opinions, and, you know, make it easier on yourself by doing so. And try to remember that it's not the end of the world if you shoot a video and it doesn't go the way you want. You know, you can create this expectation around yourself to feel like you have to create this best piece of content ever. You know, it's your first video on YouTube. You've got to make an impression. You've got to be the best that you can. And it's quite simply not like that. Here's a piece of advice that you may have already heard. No one cares about your first YouTube video. No one does. No one knows who you are online. No one will ever really watch it. It's not until time goes on that, you know, and by that point, you're going to slowly get better. It's like riding a bike. You heard that phrase? It's like riding a bike. You know, you have to learn to ride the bike first, but, you know, you start off on stabilizers, you end up riding the bike on your own, and before you know it, you're off. So it's a process. You know, take the pressure off of yourself early on. Don't expect so much of yourself. You know, it's not Hollywood. You know, this YouTube thing is done by more people than you realize, and don't get yourself into the trap of, you know, feeling like you're worried about the opinions of others. Every video that you make, try to learn something new each time. Look back on your videos, pick things out, and learn from your mistakes. Don't delete your mistakes. There's a few videos I have on my channel that I've thought sometimes I don't really like. You know, I'm not sure that I made them properly, but I leave them there to remind me to kind of look back on against kind of, you know, the content that I've made now and see my progression. And, you know, that's kind of taking a positive from a negative if you want to look at it that way. You know, I think a lot of people can just get this analysis paralysis where they perhaps make a couple of videos, worry about what they think, and not end up doing anything more. The sooner you get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, it will all become a lot more easy, and you'll actually enjoy doing this. And I promise you, I get lots of fun from making content. I never thought that I would be out here, you know, with a camera talking to you guys. I still remember the first one that I posted online, how nervous I was about it, how I was worried it was going to go wrong and how I looked stupid on camera. But it never was any of that. It just wasn't. And I'm glad I did it. And it took me a while to do it. I remember when I first started YouTube, I was planning on making 5 to 10 videos before even uploading any, because I wanted to have a backlog of content to start to upload. I felt like I wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve. But what I actually realized to myself was that I was worried about, you know, actually putting content out there, and it was an excuse I created in my own mind. So don't do that. Don't let your own justifications of why not to post content that you've created get the better of you. Just pick up a camera and just hit record. I remember reflecting the other day and thinking to myself, gosh, I've made quite a few videos now. And it was a moment for me to reflect. And I remember when I remember seeing my first video, and I remember thinking, God, I remember how I felt when I made that one compared to how I feel now. And it kind of sparked the idea to make this video for you guys, and to, you know, just give you a bit of feedback, really, and just reassure other small content creators that it's completely normal to, you know, be scared of the unknown. Just go for it. If you haven't already, check this video out here, where I go into depth about some of the unexpected benefits that I learned, and, you know, how it's shaped me just creating content recently and how I've enjoyed it. And make sure to hit the subscribe and join the tribe. As always, guys, I'll see you next time.